All right, here I have today a great friend, great advocate, community supporter, community leader, Brother Kenneth Fox Muhammad, a native of East Spencer, North Carolina. He's been on the trail for an extended period of time, not only trying to quell the disturbances that we see in our neighborhoods, but also trying to incorporate entrepreneurship, business programs, and most importantly, save our youth. Kenny, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come down and
No problem,
interview
anytime.
you on the steps of where you went to school, where
Yes,
we went
sir.
to school.
Yes,
There's a
sir.
lot of history here
Yes, sir.
at Dunbar uh, High School. So, Kenny, one of the first things that I wanted to speak about, we've got some serious issues that are going on in our community in terms of police brutality, poverty, economics, power structure. I mean, there's a plethora of things that we have going on. But first, can you address poverty and what poverty looks like?
Poverty, to answer it really descriptively, poverty is what you see being played out every day in the streets in Salisbury. Poverty looks like I don't have $20 to get a meal, or I don't have $20 to pay my bills or to get my children food. So I'm stressed out because I don't have opportunity. So I get high, and when I get high, I find out my homeboy has got a little stash of cash in his closet. So I get high with him, I break bread with him, I drink a little bit with him. Then I leave in 30 minutes, I come back with a ski mask on. And I try to get his stash so I can go feed my family. Poverty looks like that from the black neighborhood. Poverty also takes on the form of marginalization, where when you look at the city policies and the city ordinances and the city tax shelter, the money coming in to finance white people's vision is the money is being used at the detriment of the poor and the black communities. For instance, the community around Salisbury High School is an area that has been allowed to decrease in value for the sake of gentrification. Now there's a lot of black people in Salisbury, not a lot, there's a few hand-picked blacks in Salisbury that'll tell you that there's no gentrification in place, but there's white people that'll tell you that not only is there gentrification, but the most sinister and diabolical plot is social engineering around the black community, which is now about 49% majority in the Salisbury population. Poverty takes on the form of marginalization, gentrification, and genocide. When you see a police department allowed to decline in personnel and staff and equipment so that a utility which supports special interest group, Vibrant, can live and continue to rob the stakeholder community, which is 49% black, it robs it of the potential for those communities to be improved and be enhanced. So poverty will always take on the face of the oppressed. It'll always be in color. You won't see too many Caucasians, although there is a significant population in the Rowan County community that's suffering from poverty, but they suffer from poverty because they refuse to get involved in the issues and the policies just like black. And for those people to say, well, blacks like it's like that in the black community because they don't vote, well, explain to me why it's like that in the poor white community. They ain't voting either.
Wow, there was a lot of great points, and you spoke to something also involving poverty, and that was gentrification. Can you tell the viewers how does gentrification and poverty go hand in hand?
Well, gentrification, again, when you understand the structure of a city or municipality, the ways that they generate their revenue, the most significant way is tax shelter. And that's based on property tax. So you see lately they making a big deal out of Salisbury having somewhere around $50 million worth of property that's dilapidated, is not generating tax revenue. They've got more than 2,000 vacant homes. If you go and check the zip code for those homes, you'll find out that those homes are in high poverty communities where the city council over the last couple of decades have had the knowledge that those areas would decline, and so they made a conscious decision to allow the property values in those communities to go down, to go south, so that white people can come back into those communities and repurchase those properties at really low prices, and then under a redevelopment scheme, benefit from that going forward. And that's how you move the tax base from one area of the city to the other area of the city.
Wow. So ultimately, who loses when gentrification comes about?
Well, the poor and the black always are the losers.
Also, Brother Fox, can you speak to, since we're on the lines of poverty, can you speak to poverty, how it affects our school system or school systems that are not?
Okay, well, it's pretty much the same way. And I hope somebody quote me on what I'm about to say and go and do the research. But, you know, the state gives about $6,500 per student in each school district in North Carolina. Then I think the county gives $1,800. And then the federal government puts in a few dollars. And that's per student spending in the county. But in Rowan County, there are some schools, at least one school that I know of, that is receiving almost $13,000 or $11,500 per student for elementary schools, when schools like Hurley are barely getting the state allocation, which is $6,500.
Wow.
The county commissioners have oversight for that situation, and so therefore they are culpable and responsible for ensuring that state and federal dollars that come in, that money is allocated legally and allocated properly. So if one school which has a pretty decent community, strong community, and the economic and socioeconomic indicators in the Morgan area are much stronger than what you'll find in the East Spencer community or the Hurley community or the Salisbury High School community, there's no way in the world they could justify getting $11,500 per student, while students at Hurley or students at Knox or students at North Rowan Elementary are only receiving the average allocation of $6,500, somewhere around that, and they dealing with drug addicts as parents. They dealing with in the East Spencer community 72% poverty, 49% households, 200% of the households are under the federal guidelines. 49% of the households are 200% under the federal guidelines. You're dealing with single parent issues, you're dealing with sex abuse, drug abuse, all these things, and a principal at Hurley has to deal with all of those issues, and then only get $6,500, which cheats those parents in their school out of the potential to actually impact the educational opportunities for those students. That's criminal. That's criminal, and a lot more people than me know about that. And what I hope you do with this tape is I hope you shine the light on the right people. I would start with the county commissioners, because maybe the county commissioners will say they don't know about it, and maybe this is something that Josh Wagner them should be, and Miss Kennedy them, maybe they should be correcting these situations.
Right. Hey, and you know, once again, you make some very, very valid points. Just due to the fact of, I don't know what the annual income is for the residents of East Spencer. Do you know off the top?
Yes, sir. The medium income, which is a household of four, mother, father, son, daughter, is about $18,200, something, $18,000. Of course, in East Spencer, you're going to have about almost 67% of the households will be single family. And the income coming in is mostly welfare. There's really not much earned income coming in. Per capita after the tax is about $6,000. If you look at the $6,000 that a household has in East Spencer, the utility, the water and sewer that they being charged in Salisbury amounts to almost 8% of that $1,500 a month medium income.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, let me ask you this: shouldn't, if the citizens of East Spencer are that much below the annual median average income, shouldn't they qualify for more additional things, being in a poverty-stricken area?
They do, but this is what happens. If you go in, and I don't want nobody to get mad, but it is what it is. If you go and check the demographics in East Spencer, yes, we qualify for all the social services programs.
Right.
But there are very few social services programs that come into the community what you find is that our people have to go out of East Spencer into Salisbury to get those services. The health department has grants that they write on behalf of East Spencer citizens, but the East Spencer citizens got to go to Rowan County in order to benefit from the services. So now what you have on the Department of Social Services Board, you have several blacks, prominent blacks, who either don't know that this is going on, or they are being led down this other trail. And I would suggest that they're being led down the other trail, because I know they know, because I know.
Right.
You know, right? So East Spencer qualifies for all of these services. Salisbury, in fact, is the entitlement city and has been for maybe the last 50 or 60 years, which means that they solicit funds, state and federal funds, to come in, to eradicate poverty, to eradicate homelessness, and eradicate all these socioeconomic things. And that money is supposed to come into Salisbury and then trickle back out into these communities that they are identified in the grant. Well, you know that don't happen. But what you see now in East Spencer, the county is doing some, if you want to say some good faith stuff. They'll put help to support a $350,000 grant for the Royal Giants Park, which is good on the face.
Right.
But when you got 49% of the households in poverty, free lunch, probably almost 95, 96% impoverished community, you know, I would suggest that we need more sustainable thing, because we're not going to be able to make money on the park. It's not going to increase the tax base, which I don't really care about the tax base. But because it's not going to increase the tax base, it's not going to impact households. So that $350,000 could go in to make it a community center across the street. But the mayor and that board seems to think that bringing in a senior citizen facility, or you know, maybe a merry-go-round or a splash pad, that somehow that's going to impact those households. And I'm not saying that's not a good thing that Mayor Mallett is doing. I'm saying it's not at the list. It's not at the top of the list in terms of priority. What should be at the top for priority is education. When you allow your kids to go be bused outside their own community in failing schools, I think it's 9 of the elementary schools are mostly African American. All of them are either getting F's or D's. And so they want to bus our kids out to these communities so that they can get that per student spending to go along with it. And then the kid comes back home and he living in a house with a crackhead that's a mama or a prostitute. He don't see anybody that looks like him doing anything positive. He sees women walking the street and prostituting, and I know that's a black thing. But when it takes on the form of shooting and violence in Salisbury and the black community down here, we ain't having that kind of social ill. But when you start seeing shootings and stuff, and they say, well, that's a black thing, no, that's a socioeconomic problem. Because the city and the county and even the town of East Spencer are engaged in activities that don't cultivate the human being. And so what happens is, because I need money, I'll shoot you and take your $10. So it ain't about $1 million no more. It's about what I can get to satisfy my needs today.
Right. So
hope that answered the question.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So everything's about relevance.
Relevance, yeah.
It's all about relevance.
About timing, yeah.
And I know, and we worked on some projects in the past together. And I know one thing that you're very adamant about is education. You know, having an MBA and working on a doctorate in theology. You know, you've got a wealth of education behind you. So education has always been the driving force when it comes to you.
Yes, sir.
Several months ago, there was an outcry by folks in the community when the school board said that they were gonna bus their kids out of their community into other communities, and there was an outcry, and the superintendent's office was full of folk. Do those folk have that right to be angry and upset?
Yes, sir. And you know, and I was taken to task by some blacks that said, why are you supporting them? They don't support you with what you're trying to do in East Spencer. They don't have a school. And they don't, and they didn't. But I'm trained to do what's right. And when I saw what they were trying to do to these other rural schools and rural communities, I feel the same way. I don't care if the whites in those communities don't support what we're trying to do in East Spencer. What I'm supposed to do is support all those things that are right and good, and that was a good effort. So I went to the fairgrounds and offered my services, and I didn't ask them to support me with the thing in East Spencer because, you know, truth is stranger than fiction, and most of these white folk joined at the hip. And so while there was an outcry led by Todd Parrish, who I respect highly, I talked to Todd and I asked him, could I be a part of that? Because one day we'll have a school, we'll get to school, it won't have to be a charter. If they turn down the charter, we'll just do a private school. But by all indications, East Spencer is gonna have to have his own school, it's gonna have to have his own economic system independent of Salisbury and independent of Rowan County. So they do have the right, and if they don't do that, then they'll sell their communities and their children down the drain. And whatever those communities look like in 5 or 10 years, then it's justified, because those people in those communities that have resources, if they won't fight the power, then they deserve whatever they get. But I was glad to see that they fought that and beat it back for now. I think what's going forward, they need to make sure that they elect Alicia Byrd, Andrew Popson, and Mike Lowry for new board positions. And as soon as they get on board, they need to make sure that they can win over some of these other people that's on the board, like Dean Hunter and Travis, I don't remember his last name, off the guy from Cleveland, who I think is pretty sound-minded individuals. But the rest of that board need to send them on out to the pasture.
Right. Kenny, I know that you're involved in film and editing for young people. I've watched you and Alex Clark do some things with children in terms of how to sit down at a table properly, how to how to eat, how to tie your shoe. Those, some people think those are things that are petty and small, but they're huge and profound in stature. Tell the viewers why it is important that East Spencer has its own school.
Because you take the kid that's 5 years old, he'll be in the 3rd grade in a couple of years. If he's 5 years old, let's say that, I'll say 6 out of 10, maybe 7 out of 10, 5 years old are starting pre-K. He's not ready for pre-K. When he gets to the 3rd grade, he'll fail his reading scores. If he fails his reading scores, they'll stigmatize and put him in special ed, and he'll be in prison. He'll start in the juvenile school, then he'll be an inmate. They will predispose him to prison. When he's 20, when he gets 20 years from now, that same 5-year-old will feel locked out of a system that's designed to lock him out. And so what he'll do is he'll tear up his own community. He'll either become a gangbanger, or he'll be the victim of the gangbangers. He'll be a dope head, a dope user, or a dope seller. He'll be a robber, he'll be a thief. He may end up being a priest or a preacher, but the chances of him being anything positive in East Spencer is going to be 70–80% odds against him, because in Rowan County, even blacks make people that live in East Spencer feel inferior about themselves. And those same blacks are not able to articulate or express how the system works against them as adults, so they have no way of conveying those thoughts and ideals to a young person, and having that young person avoid being stigmatized. So we have to have our own schools, and we have to have our own mentor. I like what the brother's doing with the Man Up Monday, but you still having to go to a school in somebody else's community and represent, and that child has to come home and see people that look like you and look like them be unproductive. So we need our own school so they can get to see man up all day, woman up all day, so that because kids become what they see.
Right. And I can't help but to piggyback on what you're saying in terms of the educational piece and kids viewing who they see and what they become. And that's very true, just due to the fact that, I'm a college graduate, all this degree, this, that, and the other, but I didn't realize that I was an educated dummy until I got out of college.
Oh yeah, me too.
And got with the likes of you, Russell Swilly, and until we got a real education on life and who we were about. It seems as though that our youth have no idea who they are, because we've been in a system that teaches them something totally different.
Right.
Is that on purpose?
Yes, sir. When you one of the things I've learned over my few years on the planet is that everything is by design. And when you look at the educational system in America, it's all rooted in psychology. And the psychology is rooted, not only the psychology, but all the counseling and all of your institutions of learning are rooted in Eurocentric values. And then the Eurocentric tendencies are to assess negative traits to people of color, like the bell curve theory.
Right.
So, you know, the guy that did the bell curve theory said blacks are incapable of learning and that they are less intelligent than whites. And if that's true, and it's not true, then everything that they put forth in terms of educational and theories and counseling, even in the social fields, all of those theories are rooted in that white supremacy, racism, and white Eurocentric values. The way you unprove that, or the way you prove that that's a false theory, this bell curve, is there was no white people before there were blacks. And even by their own scholars' admission, they studied our ancient fathers and brothers to get civilization. So you can't say that there was no civilization and no intelligence prior to your coming on the planet, which has only been a little over 6,000 years. And we've been here much longer than that. Lucy is much older than that. So if you got the civilization, you had to get it from somebody else. And you had to get it from people of color. So there's no way you can back that bell curve thing up. It is what it is. It's SHIT stuff.
Right.
You know, but we buy it because we think, as children of post-slavery, we take everything the white people say on face value. We don't go and check behind them. I check behind them. And in fact, we shouldn't even check behind them no more, because we can prove, I mean, you can see that they light don't went out. They don't know how to get out of this thing that they in themselves. When you got leaders like Greg Ayers emerge as the leader, oh man, the counter burning on both ends rapidly. I had to get back at Greg Ayers. That's my man.
Yeah, I got you.
That's the littlest Donna.
The littlest what?
The littlest Donna.
Explain that.
The littlest Donna is the brain size. He's 6 ounces of brain, and he don't maximize it. He only got 6 ounces of brain, and he's trying to tell somebody with 7.5 ounces what to do or how to think. So he's like Donald Trump. He's the littlest. You know, Donald got a little small problem.
Right.
You can see it when he's talking, and Greg's got the same problem.
Right.
And not just Greg, but Greg is the one that jumped out there and wanted to put the dunce hat on, so I let him wear it.
Right. Speaking of Donald Trump, I'll give you two names, and I'll let you do the dissertation for me. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton.
Donald Trump is absolutely who you need in the White House. And the reason is why is if you put Donald Trump in the White House in November, in 3 to 4 years, America would go down to the abyss of hell. So says the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And that's what needs to happen. We don't need to keep trying to integrate into a burning house or a failed system. This system needs to be bulldozed down, and we need to start from the bottom up. And Donald Trump gives us a chance to start much earlier than Hillary. Hillary is going to prolong our agony.
Right.
And Donald Trump by himself or Hillary by himself, neither one of them going to change our condition. We had Barack for 8 years and we got worse off. I hate to say that, but we got worse off if you go look at the numbers.
Right.
Don't look at the polls, because the polls just sound. But if you go look at these 15,000 jobs that they say we didn't get them, I mean, you and I just recently are starting to try to get people hired on our own out here in Salisbury. Barack ain't been down here and offered one job. And I ain't knocking Barack. I like the brother as a brother, but in the position of President of the United States, he is in fact the open enemy of the poor.
Wow.
And Hillary will follow right after him.
Wow.
So, you know.
Hey, the one thing you can say about Brother Fox, he definitely, he's going to speak his mind, and he's going to speak the truth. One last thing before we shut it down is police brutality. We've witnessed the Charlotte situation in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and there's been a plethora of other scenarios in our country within the last year and a half.
Yes, sir.
Can you speak to police brutality?
Yes, sir. I believe his book, Ezekiel 37. The Son of Man was called by God and told to go down into the house of Israel. And he said, I want you to go speak to these stiff-necked, hard-headed, rebellious children of Israel. He's talking about blacks. And so the Son of Man went down, he did a little rapping, did a little town hall meeting, and the people rallied a little bit, then they went right back to sleep. So the Son of Man was called by God again. He asked him, Son of Man, how fare the children of Israel? And so the Son of Man said, only you know, Lord. He said, I rapped with them, I did a little bit of this with them, I did a little bit of that with them. You know, they rattled a little bit, but then they went back to sleep. He said, well, go back to them, and then, but this time, don't even talk to the children of Israel. Prophesy to the winds. And that's where we are. The winds mean the hard times. And if you go into the book of Habakkuk and some of the other books, they talk about how God released these demons and plagues and these scorpions whose job was to sting the children of Israel. So we getting that sting. Because there's still a lot of you black people out there that believe that white people have the capacity to change their heart. And I ain't saying you wrong. I'm just saying I ain't seen that many of them. And if they out there, they don't have no power, and what you need is power. You don't need nobody, because white folk don't respect pleading Negroes. White folk respect what they fear, and they don't fear you. They don't fear your leadership. They don't fear anything that you propose. So your children having to come around you and take on the oppressor because you won't do it. In fact, you get in the way and try to block them from dealing with the oppressor. So what God is saying is, since you like blood, because some of you older blacks, y'all think that the National Guard should come in to Salisbury and kill up these young blacks. Or you don't think in your foolishness that they'll kill them, but you know that's what they'll do. But you got to fool yourself so you can sleep at night. So what's happening, Chris, is they stinging us. White folk and through the police department, which was empowered by the Obama administration. All right? And all y'all that's with Obama, I ain't against him, but I ain't with him, because he ain't with me. Under the Obama administration, police departments all over the country were given almost $200 billion worth of militarized equipment from the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. So what you see now is you don't see police departments, you see militarized combat units, right? And so when you take most of these people in combat, I've never been in combat, but I watch a lot of combat movies. And in combat, they heighten your primal senses. So if you already hate black, or you already hate a segment of the population, the militarized training teaches you how to heighten those abilities. And then even in the new Denzel Washington movie that comes out this week, the guy says, when you aim, you have to hate what you're aiming at. So hate now plays into police encounters with black men. And so what you see, you saw Charlotte in flames last night on 85, what you saw the hate that hate produced. But don't blame it on the victim. Blame it on the system that inspires that type of. So when you bring militarized police into a community, that's the same as unleashing a military on a domestic population. And that's what they're doing. We at war. And just because you ain't fighting don't mean it ain't no war. So if you're riding down the 85 or if you're riding around Salisbury, my advice, if you ain't gonna do nothing, if you ain't gonna choose sides in the war, make sure you got a good book to read and a full tank of gas, because you might find yourself sitting out there on the interstate for a little while.
Brother Fox, in 2 minutes, I want you to give me a closing statement, anything that you want. 2 minutes.
Oh, wow, in 2 minutes. I don't need no 2 minutes.
Yeah, you don't need
I don't need no 2 minutes. Noble Drew Ali said that in the year 2000, the Moors will return to the throne. And I submit to you humbly that if you believe you have solutions, don't take them to white people, take them to your own community and organize in the community, then demonstrate your scholarship through action. And then find balanced, listening white people that really want, because there are some white people that really want to help. The problem is their nature is that they want to tell you how to do it because you think that they have the resources and access to the resources to get it done. And they do, but they can't do the work. They don't have the capacity. It's kind of like trying to get butter from a duck. You just simply can't get butter from a duck. Most of them don't have the capacity for justice, especially if that means that they got to give up some things so that you can get a little bit. They don't have that capacity. So it's our time to rise, and Kenny Hardin issued a challenge a couple weeks ago for each one of us to take a young person and teach them everything that we know. And I took that challenge, took a couple brothers up to D.C. I reissued that challenge for the councilman, and support the councilman. No matter what you think about that brother personally, he is on the inside. And he can do more there than you can do on the outside. Thank you.
And speaking of that, I know that you're taking some kids, 5 to 10 kids to Greensboro, if I'm not mistaken.
Winston-Salem.
Winston-Salem for.
It's a unity banquet that is hosted by the Nation of Islam. And the guest speaker is Minister Abel Muhammad. He's the Hispanic representative of the Most Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And he's coming in because he's hearing about these warring
Right.
factions, the gang. And what he wants to do is bring some peace and some strategies that blacks and the brown and the Latinos and the Dominicans can rally around.
Right.
Because it is our time.
When is that event?
That is Saturday at 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock in Winston.
All right, and that's this Saturday. Correct?
This Saturday, yes, sir.
All right, I know it's costing gas and everything else, entry fee. What's the price?
It's $20 a ticket, and they don't have to worry about the gas. If they want to donate a ticket, they can call me at 980-565-9270, or they can inbox me on Facebook, and I'll make sure that these young people go and get something out of this.
Brother Fox,
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you hanging with the bishop,
Oh, yeah, Bishop on it.
my man. Peace, brother.
Peace.
Okay, so from twisting